Welcome, Internet, to the PixelPlay Podcast, your weekly podcast where we get together to discuss all the news, rumors, and discussions going on in the video game world. I am one of your co-hosts, Kaylan, aka Ktastrophy, joined as always by my co-host, Adam, CSRadical. This week's episode, we're going to be tackling Stadia closing down and what was the cause of that. We're going to be talking about PlayStation remaking Horizon Zero Dawn. You remember that ancient game? Well, it's getting a remake, and I'm excited to see what it looks like when it gets an upgrade. We're going to be talking about what games PlayStation actually should be remaking. If you couldn't tell from my tone, I was being sarcastic with Horizon. Adam, this is a big episode for us. This is the last episode where it's just the two of us. Starting next week, ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening to it as we release it the week of October 4th, we are going to be having a new host as part of the show. We're going to be getting Chris and Jin and Chris on the show. I have to get
You're
that.
You're going to learn it eventually.
I'm going to learn it eventually. We're going to get Jin and Chris from Cartridges and Quarters onto the show, and it'll be the three of us talking about everything going on in the video game industry, as you know, with a slight change. So look forward to that next week. But yeah, Adam, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for the changeover. I'm also excited for the less work I'm going to be doing weekly when we only have one show a week again. But you know.
Oh no! If you're doing less work, I expect better work. That's the difference.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, Adam. Big week this week in terms of we've lost a console name. Not that anyone knew that, but yeah, I thought we should press F to pay respects to Stadia and talk about that one a little bit.
I mean, I'm afraid to do it on this keyboard because I don't know if our recording software is going to do anything. So I won't. I'll touch the F key for it. Because, I mean, I don't have any candles to light. I don't drink, so I don't have anything to pour out. Not that I would waste it anyway on Stadia, but, you know.
Call it Stadia? Is it Stadia or Stadia?
I don't know. I call it Stadia because I think it sounds much more sophisticated than it actually was.
Sounds bougie.
Yeah. And it probably makes sense that way because, you know, it felt like a bougie product because no one bought it.
Yeah. To be honest, I actually, it's sad that Stadia is going out. I mean, we all saw this coming, but, you know.
I think Google will be fine.
Sorry?
I think Google will be fine.
You know, it's hard. I know they put a lot of effort into this, but yeah, Google's going to be shutting down Stadia at the beginning of next year. But props to Google. They're handling this not like a champ, but I think it's really cool that they're basically refunding any purchase that people made. That's super cool. They could have just been like, see you guys, sucks to be you, but they're really supporting it. But Adam, the reason why I want to talk to you about this is what do you think caused Stadia to fail? Was this a bad console? What was it that caused Stadia to fail in your opinion?
There's so many things I could start with. The biggest thing is that, quite frankly, there just wasn't a market for a fourth console, in my opinion. I think 3 was already the point that I think everybody's carved out their niche now. And then that's not even counting PC gaming. Not to mention, I think much like when OnLive first came and whenever that, it feels like ages ago, but it wasn't really that, like, not even a decade, maybe a little bit more than a decade. But like OnLive existed and it didn't do well either. I think we're just at a point that Stadia is still ahead of its time, and even then, I think it had an even tougher route because it wasn't coming from, you know, an actual game studio. Rather, like if this was Sony coming up with something like Stadia, it might have had a fighting chance. But because it was a complete outsider, and to be completely honest too, not a lot of people have a very favorable opinion of Google to begin with. So there's also that as well to be kind of brought into it. I just think it was a circumstance of it wasn't a good time for this yet. It was more of just like another idea being floated around that might lead to something down the road. And just couple that with a company that people really didn't want to give any more money to at this point, because with all the stories you see about things with YouTube and many other things that Google owns, people just are really not that interested in supporting them. We barely want to support some of the companies we do already.
Yeah, I see. I think it's a matter I think Stadia could have totally worked. I mean, Stadia is essentially the same thing almost as what Game Pass is, right? I think one of the problems that they had is the idea that you had to pay for your games to access them digitally. Like, I think if they had done a Game Pass kind of route where it's like, hey, stream your games, you know, you get a collection to this system, you can access it, I would have done gangbusters. But the idea that you're paying for the same price of a full game and then it was just you streamed it, was kind of weird. Like that's not kind of what it does. And I think it's an aspect that Google wasn't supporting it as well, in the sense that, when we were doing Jeff Keighley's, game shows, and when we had companies doing press conferences, I never heard of Google doing any sort of those kind of shows to kind of show what's coming down the line. It was always sort of a peripheral third party, like, oh yeah, maybe it's coming to Stadia. You never saw many exclusives on Stadia. You never saw anything that was like, hey, we're investing in this.
It really
And
did
so I
come
think
off
that
like a system that was like made to be like, hey, let's just throw a dart at the wall, and if it sticks, we'll focus on it. If it doesn't do anything, we've got 10,000 other projects we can focus on.
But I think the problem is that gaming is so competitive of an industry that you have to be invested. You
Yeah.
have to. There's no half-assing it with the gaming industry. Like you have to be in it and you have to be competitive. I think they dropped the ball. Like they could have supported it, because I remember when CD Projekt Red released Cyberpunk, that was Google's opportunity, because I remember hearing that game ran really well on Stadia from a cloud streaming perspective. So if they had come in and been like, hey, you know what? You're hearing all this crap about, Cyberpunk. You know where it's not screwing up? It's, where it looks great? Stadia. Come check it out. Like that would have been a way to get people into it.
That would have been a
And
great time to have somebody on your social media team that was much like the Wendy's Twitter account guys, where they just know how to just really twist the dagger in something to bring some eyeballs to their stuff.
Yeah, or even not even like just be like cynical or sarcastic like that, but even just be genuine. Just be like, hey, check out Cyberpunk on Stadia and how well it's working. Like, if you want to play this, and lots of people did, get a Stadia, because it was also like generally inexpensive to get it. So I think it's a combination that Stadia was just ahead of its time, in the sense that, one, you had to have a good internet speed, which not everyone has, and I think two, the other issue is it just wasn't supported and implemented right from Google's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, if like I said, there's so many reasons you can really go into about it. The biggest ones were just the market was too competitive that if you weren't going to focus, it wasn't going to do well. It was a little bit early for what we were getting ready for, and even though it was a little bit early compared to things like Game Pass, like you said, the fact that you had to buy the games in full didn't help it either. So it was also testing the waters for a system that would be used later, but used much more effectively later. So it was constantly playing catch up, and then before they even had a chance to catch up, Google seemingly already threw in the towel, and I'm surprised it honestly lasted as long as it did, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I say lasted as long as it did, but how many people really paid attention that it was even existing? Like when I saw that story, I was like, oh yeah, Stadia was still a thing.
Yeah, like when was the last time you heard anything positive or negative about Stadia? Like
Once in a blue moon, you would hear an announcement from a developer, like at some points independently from everything else, saying, oh yeah, and this game's coming to Stadia on this day. And we'd be like, oh yeah, that exists. And then we go back to not remembering that it existed for 3 months until another game did that.
Yeah.
Like, I would really be interested to know, like, because I don't know anybody who's ever owned one. So, like, I'd love to know from somebody who did what the perspective was from the entirety of its launch, especially if you got it from the day one. I would be super curious to know, like, what that whole experience was if you were really into it. But, like, I have nothing to bounce off of, and that's kind of the key of why it's going away. It's because no one cared and no one bought it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I've ever seen one in the wild. Like, I've never seen one at a store. I've never seen a friend have one. Like, I've never seen a
I may
Stadia
have passed
console.
one and just never paid attention, because why would I?
Well, that's the thing. If you think about, like, how many times have I gone to GameStop? I don't see it at GameStop, right? I've gone to Best Buy. How many times do I see it at Best Buy? I haven't seen it. At least it's not where it should be with the rest of the gaming stuff.
I mean, you think about it too. Like, how many times have we talked about that console on this podcast? Is it ever been for anything apart from something's gone wrong with it? It's never really been in. I don't even think when it first was announced, it was even really put in that much of a positive light, because people were going like, this is a bad idea, like right now. Yeah. And then when we found out that you had to pay full price for it, we went, oh, that's a really bad idea.
Yeah.
It just seemed like out of the gate, no one cared, because it didn't seem like it was going to work. And lo and behold, when it didn't work, no one cared. So no one talked about it.
Exactly.
It's a shame, though, because, like, you know that there were people that were employed specifically to work on it. If that's gone, they're probably, well, they may not be out of the job. They might get shuffled somewhere else, but maybe that was, their dream. It was something to work on. For all we know, maybe it was a really easy job where you didn't get to do anything and you were getting paid really well. So it sucks to be them. Maybe they actually have to work now. But it sucks because it's another option gone. It's the same way with, like, you remember the Ouya when that was a big deal for a hot minute, and then that disappeared. The whole Android gaming box that was supposed to be a big thing on Kickstarter and then just completely vanished like as soon as it launched.
Womp womp.
So, it is what it is. I mean, like I said, I'm not surprised that it's gone. I mean, let's be honest, we knew it wasn't going to stay. It had no Stadian powers, but
yeah. Anyways, so long, Stadia. Don't let the door hit you on the way.
I'd say we hardly knew you, but that's actually true. We did hardly knew you.
Adam, let's go to the other big story from this week. Sony is supposedly, have they confirmed it? I think it's been corroborated, but not confirmed
It's
yet.
been like rumored, but it's pretty much a guarantee at this point. It's one of those things that it's like, we know what's happening.
Yeah, so PlayStation is apparently remaking / remastering Horizon Zero Dawn. Yes, the game from, I think it was 2008, 2007.
That's a good question.
I think it was 2006 now I'm thinking about it.
It was 2017.
Ah, it's close. So they're remastering a 5-year-old game. Why?
Why 5.5?
My apologies, sir. My apologies. Yeah, so they're remastering Horizon Zero Dawn supposedly. What a waste of time and resources this is. Especially because I believe it has an upgrade, and I think at least a 60 FPS upgrade, if not 4K.
I mean, look, it's going to become like Sony's looking at what Skyrim does and going, we can do that.
It's ridiculous. This is ridiculous.
Just the shake of the head there.
I don't know what we're going to talk about. Like, this is a dumb idea. Should they be doing it? No. Like, I want to talk about what actually they should be making. So this week I went ahead and, with the help of you, we've made a little battle royale sort of round robin tournament to kind of figure out which game Sony should remake. So we have 40 games, 10 games from each console. For simplicity, we did not do like sequels or anything. We're just going to kind of lump them together. So your big, like for the ones that have multiple entries, we're not going to do like every Gran Turismo in there. We're just going to say, should Gran Turismo be remastered? And then from there, we can just kind of discuss which one we do. Like as a general, does that series deserve a remaster? Blah, blah, blah.
It's funny because that Gran Turismo is not even in the list.
I know, because it's Gran Turismo.
Yeah, like there's no point in remaking them. They're just going to make another one anyway.
That game only got better as it went older.
Yeah.
Like, no one wants to play the old one. Adam, I'm going to let you you have the form. Are we going to throw it up on the video chat?
Yeah, we're going to throw it up on the video board. So those of you in audio will unfortunately not be able to see the amazing board that I didn't just use challenge.com to use the bracket system for instead of, making anything myself because I'm lazy. But those on the video stream on YouTube, which if you're not subscribed to, you should be. But that's besides the point.
Just for quick reference, Adam, I don't see the list here. Do you want to just take the lead on this one?
Oh, I'll cover that for you. Don't worry about it. Cool. Don't you worry. I have this all set up for you. I'll take the hosting duty for like 20 minutes.
I'll let you be in the driver's seat.
Perfect.
So go ahead.
I'll happily do this. So we'll start off. We'll go from the beginning to the top. So we'll start with PlayStation 1. Basically, we're gonna do 4 brackets. And then we'll have a winner on each of them. And then I don't know, do you want to do like a winner take all 100%. Between the 4 consoles? Or do you want to just end it? 100%
I do.
Perfect. All 100%.
Right. Well, the question, Adam, is which game deserves a remaster, not which game from each generation.
Okay.
It's which game.
Well, I guess that makes sense too, because technically we have like 3 different Metal Gear entries in here, so I guess it is what it is. So, all right. So PlayStation 1, we got a couple of play-in rounds before we get to 8 because we're doing 10. The first round I have Wipeout and Warhawk.
Okay.
If I had to choose between the two, I would quickly go with Wipeout just because I think Warhawk is much more niche.
Yeah, I'd say Wipeout. Yeah. So let's actually quickly set some parameters. What are your parameters when you're deciding these, just so the audience knows our thought process?
Generally, just what I think is what I want.
Okay,
because I mean, if I just go with the popularity vote, then I already know who's going to win.
So I have a couple criteria, and this might help navigate you, maybe give you some criteria. So for me, it's 1, is this game in need of a remake? So like it's unavailable, it's kind of doesn't hold up if you go back to it. That's one criteria. 2, does it fit with Sony's catalog, right? So does it fit in the sense of it's something that they need, or does it complement the catalog?
So we're not doing what we want. We want what they think they should.
Oh no, I'm also including. Do people want to play it, including me? And that's also a factor I'm including there.
All right, that's
And
fair.
then
Well, the
fill
answer is
the
still
help.
Wipeout for me.
I agree. Wipeout.
They're gonna make me submit a scope. Oh, they're just erroring. Oh god, this is gonna be a pain in the ass. All right, Challenge, you have your thing. The other play-in would be Ape Escape and Wild Arms. Honestly, I think it's Ape Escape just because Wild Arms has its own successor coming out now, so it doesn't need to be.
Ape Escape.
Yeah, that was a pretty straightforward one. Some of these are going to be blanketly easy, and then others are going to be a lot more painful. So if we go now to the actual round of 8, Metal Gear Solid and Wipeout, I don't think there's a question on that one. I think clearly Wipeout wins.
Yeah, Metal Gear.
I mean, I'm basically in this specific bracket, we're looking at what can beat Metal Gear, really.
Kind of.
Next round would be Legend of Dragoon against Siphon Filter. That one's interesting. You know, from the perspective, I know there's a lot of JRPG fans that are like, that's not even a close one. Siphon Filter, if you're not doing Metal Gear Solid, if you have trouble with dealing with Konami over this, Siphon Filter is not a bad replacement for that.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to go with one or the other, though, I think Legend of Dragoon is probably the better pick, because if Sony had a first-party run JRPG system, I think that would be a big deal for them. I mean, Persona's kind of that for them right now, but Persona is starting to get rolled out to other consoles now. So it may not be as exclusive. Maybe Persona 6 will be exclusive to Sony. Don't know. But as it stands right now, they don't have their de facto JRPG. And I think if they do it right, redoing Legend of Dragoon, I think that would have a good shot at it. I think that's where I'd go, but I'm also using my JRPG bias here.
See, this is the hard one for me because my initial gut is Siphon Filter. And I think Siphon Filter makes a good argument in that I think it fits better with Sony's current catalog in terms of what they're doing. Single player, first person, or third person action adventure kind of shooting games fits right up there with them.
I would agree with that too.
But Sony also doesn't have a huge standing of JRPGs anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of both. Like Siphon Filter fits with where they're at right now, but Legend of Dragoon would fill a hole they don't currently hold.
Yeah. So my thought is, like, do you think a JRPG like this, do you do it like in a classic style and do an actual remake, like a remaster, and kind of just build it like it is, or do you have to do something like Final Fantasy VII?
I think you ground up it and make it a modern JRPG and try to really take a run at seeing if you can do it yourself.
Yeah, and then I feel like at that point you're getting past, like, this raises the question, is Final Fantasy VII Remake, is that a remake?
Yeah, it is, because it is completely rebuilding it from the ground up. Like, not even the story is technically the same. So it's actually you could even make an argument that Final Fantasy VII isn't even an actual remake of Final Fantasy VII. It's a complete redo. It's a reimagining. It's almost like beyond that.
I kind of feel like it might be Legend of Dragoon.
I mean, you're the deciding vote here. I mean, it's going to lose to Metal Gear anyway, so...
Yeah, 100%. So screw it. Let's just go with Cyberpunk.
I'm like, you're agonizing over the game that's going to lose to Metal Gear Solid at this point.
Yeah.
Next up, Ape Escape would go up against Cool Borders. I probably lean to Cool Borders. I think just because it would fit a different niche.
Yeah.
Because, like, I still miss the days of SSX Tricky. Like, I miss those games. Like, I wish those would come back, too. I know that kind of exists now with, what's the Ubisoft one that they just did? That was
Steep?
like a mountain biking, like, weird thing.
Oh, no, not Steep. It was, oh my god, what the heck is it called? A stupid one with, like, the vibrant colors and the gas mask or whatever.
Yeah, something like I just can't think of the name of it right now because, most people forgot about it.
Yeah, you're at, like, some, like, summer camp or something like that?
Sure. You could say whatever you want, and I think that makes sense at this point.
I'm going to look it up right now. But yeah, I think, well, you've also seen the success of things like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and stuff. I think, yeah, Cool Borders would be the better way.
Yeah, I agree. Like, Ape Escape, again, is a very niche one, and it's kind of like a bit out there, too. I don't know. Like, Knack already exists if you really want to keep building stuff that's more geared to, like, a younger audience. I mean, Little Big Planet also kind of fills that void, too.
By the way, Riders Republic is the game.
I kept thinking Downhill Jam. I'm like, no, that's like that arcade game where you got on the mountain bike and actually biked yourself in a race. And I love that as a kid, and I could never do that now because I would be so fucking tired.
Oh, right.
Last one in the Battle of 8 is Armored Core going up against Twisted Metal.
I'd say Armored Core.
It's tougher than I think, because like Twisted Metal seems like the obvious answer, but Twisted Metal is very niche, and I don't know if it works the same way that it does now, because that was essentially what they were kind of going for with Destruction All-Stars, and it wasn't that. I mean, it was fun for me, but no one played it, so it really wasn't that fun.
Yeah, I think Twisted Metal in its sense is like it's an old style of game, like the whole arena combat thing. I don't know if it really holds up.
I think Armored Core would have a lot more versatility, being like, especially if you're making like, whether it's first person, third person, like you could reimagine it and turn it into like a really good, like, you know, something that you'd see like an esports kind of like multiplayer game.
Well, if remind me if I'm correct, but I think Armored Core is actually FromSoft, is it not?
I think you're right on that. It's been a while.
So like you're coming off the height of like, hey,
From Software.
This is where FromSoft came from. Like this is like their beginnings. FromSoft is hot right now in the sense that you put in an Armored Core and say, hey, this is from the original makers of, or these are from the people who made Elden Ring. You're gonna get some sales there, and we don't have a lot of mech combat games anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I still go to this day, like, if anyone has never played Hawken before, that's Hawken, that's actually a really fun multiplayer mech shooting game. It's very good, and it shows that that kind of stuff still works if it's done well. So I think there's probably a better shot at. I think you might have a better chance of making money with Twisted Metal, but I think Armored Core is more of a potential, like, hit of a higher ceiling, I think, if it's done properly. And also From Software does have the pedigree to get people's attention on it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's the way to go. Yeah. So Adam, what does our next bracket look like?
Oh, we're not done.
Or not?
We got to get through all the rest of these still.
Sorry, I meant like, can you break me down where we're at right now with PS1 games?
So the semifinal matchup, we would be Metal Gear Solid against Legend of Dragoon. And then we would have Cool Borders and Armored Core.
Okay.
So if we do Metal Gear Legend of Dragoon, I'm pretty sure that's still Metal Gear.
It's still Metal Gear, yep.
I mean, no one's beating Metal Gear. This is kind of like going to be the easiest one, I think.
I think so.
Cool Borders and Armored Core, that's actually tough.
Armored Core.
Do we have a first coin flip on this one?
Well, here, this is the thing. Do we do a coin flip, or do we want to do like vetoes? So like if you do a veto on me right now, then I'll get a veto on you later. Do like,
you know what? I'm going to go with Armored Core, but barely. I think just because there's already more of a market for snowboarding games still with Steep in that. I think there's a little more of an opening with Armored Core that would work for them. And I think, again, From Software does have the advantage. I think Cool Borders doesn't have the name recognition that, say, if SSX came back, that it would have. So I think there's also that going to it.
Well, didn't we have like an SSX game a little while ago that came out? Like,
not for PS4? I don't think. I think there was one like 360 era. Yeah, 2012 was the last one.
Yeah, and I mean that kind of came and went. Same with, like I said, Steep kind of came and went. Riders Republic.
Yeah, but the problem with SSX is they kind of didn't do what people remembered it for. They try to sort of be a little more serious with it because EA seems to really like taking things more seriously with sports now, which is weird because no one, well, I guess their niche audience really likes it because it's a massive niche audience, but
yeah.
But either way,
I'd say Armored Core.
Yeah, and that's where I've gone. So I guess the final is Metal Gear Armored Core. That's a pretty big no-brainer. Metal Gear walks out of that one. So
Metal Gear, yep.
Metal Gear wins the PlayStation 1 bracket. That's not a surprise. I basically, as soon as I was making these brackets, I'm like, well, that's not difficult.
That was the gimme. That was the gimme.
Yeah, I mean, there might still be a gimme later, but it's not nearly as cut and dry, especially when we get to PS2, where there's actually a lot of good ones. I think there's an obvious one, but that's not necessarily the case here. Yeah. So
it's interesting because we're coming from different perspectives too. So let's see.
Yeah, that's true. PlayStation 2, we start off with a play-in round of The Getaway and God of War. Here is my hot take. The Getaway should win because God of War already is being redone, and I don't think we need like the old God of War games brought back.
I agree. I am 100% on The Getaway. God of War, the original trilogy, fun game, especially like when you get to God of War 3, like looked amazing at the time. But I feel like the new God of War is better. It's more mature.
Yeah, because like I'm sure people are saying, what are you talking about? God of War has been redone. God of War now is not the same as God of War back then. So we're talking about remaking one of those. And to me, it doesn't need to be there anymore.
The other thing too is I feel like the Getaway would actually benefit from a remaster, and I think the Getaway might be a dark horse in this tournament because from what I hear, like I've never played it, but it's a game that looks awesome. But I never played it, and a lot of people
A lot of
never got
people love it
past
a lot, but it wasn't made very well for its time. It really hasn't aged very well. It's the kind of
the
thing that
tutorial
it
too.
needs to be brought back because I think it would fill the void. Especially, this should have been brought back years ago because it would have filled the void that has been left since GTA 5 refused to ever go away.
Exactly. So I think like if they came back and they said, "Hey, we remastered it. We made it so you can get past the tutorial and actually play the game." Like there's a lot of people who've heard great things or who've wanted to play it but couldn't get past the tutorial. I think there's an audience for the Getaway.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree because I mean, I've heard similar things to what everybody else has said, where that like this is a game that had so much potential and just it passed a lot of people by for obviously a lot of reasons.
Hmm.
This is a fun play-in round. Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank.
Sly Cooper.
I think that's, or sorry, not Ratchet and Clank. Jack and Daxter. Sorry.
Sly Cooper.
I still agree with that, but man, Jack is one of those things that like Jack was so big. Like Jack 2 and Jack 3 were big deals in the PS2 era, and yet I don't know anybody who mentions them anymore. It's so weird to me.
That's not true. I reached out to some of our podcasting buddies, and Jack and Daxter was a big one that came up. It's one that people want, but I think people also want Sly Cooper. I feel like the thing with Sly Cooper, I feel like Sly Cooper would probably age a little bit better or hold up a little bit more in 2022 than Jack and Daxter would, because Jack and Daxter, especially the first one, is very platformy, whereas I feel like Sly Cooper is a little bit more nuanced with the aspects of stealth. And once again, this isn't saying the first Sly Cooper or the first Jack and Daxter, but which series needs to have a remaster. And I think Sly Cooper holds up a little bit better and is a little bit more interesting from the stealth perspective.
Yeah, and I think with the way that we have with the consoles doing 60 frames really effectively now, like with the kind of visual aesthetic that Sly Cooper has, that would look incredible with 60 frames per, like the fluidity of that, almost looking like you're playing a cartoon.
Yeah. And we got a hint of that with the Sly Cooper 4 on the PS3 with the Thievius Raccoonus, and that looked really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that has the most potential between the two for sure. So that's going to move on.
What does this bracket look like
so far? Our first match in the round of 8 would be Ico, I think it's pronounced, or Ico.
I heard Ico.
Against the Getaway. I still think the Getaway keeps going.
Okay, let's go through all the rounds and we'll come back and circle back.
Okay, well, Ico against the Getaway, SOCOM against Dark Cloud, Ratchet and Clank against Sly Cooper, and then Shadow of the Colossus against Killzone.
Okay.
So, cool. Yeah, Ico against the Getaway.
I'd give it to the Getaway.
I think, like, just Ico is very similar to, like, what Shadow of the Colossus will be and The Last Guardian will be when we get to the PS3 era. They're all, actually, might be PS4. I can't remember which one we put it in. They're all, like, good games in the moment, but do they have the power to be done again and more effectively for a wider audience? I think Ico doesn't quite have the same thing, whereas the Getaway would definitely go to a much wider audience, considering you're looking at the GTA crowd. Mm-hmm. So that's that. That brings us to SOCOM against Dark Cloud. I fucking love Dark Cloud, but it's SOCOM without even thinking about it because that's your Call of Duty game, basically.
Yeah, and we don't have a lot of games like that on the PlayStation side. I think there's a huge fan base for SOCOM that wanted to come back, and it's a fun like multiplayer game that you can play with your friends and stuff. So yeah, I'd say SOCOM.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, if they got level 5 around to make a new Dark Cloud game and make it so perfect, it would do amazingly well, but not as amazingly well if they did a great SOCOM game. So it's just as much as my bias wants to vote otherwise, it's just not going to happen. Ratchet and Clank against Sly Cooper. I mean, we were going to say Sly anyway, but now I got the correct bracket for Sly Cooper, and I think, again, same thing. Also, Ratchet kind of already exists and doesn't really need to be done again because they're already doing its own thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to say. Like, we had the Sly Cooper game, or the Ratchet and Clank game on PS4, which was kind of a remake already. Also, like, we have a better one already with Into the Nexus.
I've still got to play Rift Apart, too.
Sorry, that's what I'm thinking of, Rift Apart. Yeah, like, we already have a Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank's doing fine. We do not need to go back to the original, whereas I feel like we need to breathe some life into Sly Cooper. So, Sly Cooper.
Yeah. And then that would leave Shadow of the Colossus against Killzone. This is sort of tough because Shadow of the Colossus is very well known as being one of the best games from that generation. Killzone would apply to a bigger audience, but Killzone has also had that opportunity several times and doesn't seem to click.
Yeah.
Like, if I think Shadowfall was the last one they did when it was a launch title for PS4, and it didn't do well at all.
See, I liked the Killzone franchise. Like, this is gonna be my bias. I love Killzone. Killzone 2 is the best one in the series, in my opinion. And I could definitely see it benefiting from a remaster. PlayStation does not have a lot of first-person shooters, and Killzone is kind of their first-person shooter. Here's my argument: is if we go to the original Killzone, Killzone 1 was kind of meh, with some neat ideas in terms of having different like players with different special abilities and such.
Yeah.
That maybe we do need to give Killzone another shot, like make the PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2 game that the way it should be. Like if you remastered it, made it better, maybe it would work. But I'm with you too that like they've done it a lot and Killzone's never resonated.
I'm thinking from the perspective of if you're looking to make money, I feel like making a Shadow of the Colossus remake from the ground up and doing like the impressive visuals that it was back then and now converting it to what we have today, like looking at what say Horizon does already with like its massive monsters and scope, Shadow of the Colossus could be incredible with that.
It's a tough one. I think it's gonna have to be Shadow of the Colossus.
Like again, I think Killzone probably has the higher ceiling, but I think because of the name recognition that Shadow of the Colossus has, it puts that over the edge. Because I think the potential for that is just that much higher, even though Killzone would be able to carry forward if it was done effectively.
I also feel like Killzone needs a tonal change. I don't think you would get that in a remake or remaster. Kind of need to move away from that whole dude bro.
It almost feels like they'd be better off just starting a new IP that's a first-person shooter and trying to build something new again, rather than trying to rehash Killzone. Yeah. Even though, like, I got friends that love it too, that wish they had brought it back because they were big on it. It just feels like that one's damaged goods. To like, I'm not saying it in like a negative light so much as just I don't think people care about it as much as like the hardcore fans will. But I don't think the general public will hear a new Killzone game and go, "Oh my god, I got to play this now."
I think what Killzone needs is not so much a remake or remaster, but a reimagining. That's what I think it needs. Because like
who's the developer of Killzone again?
It's Guerrilla.
Is it? Oh, was it Guerrilla?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was. So like, I imagine if you say Guerrilla Studios is making a new first-person shooter and it's not Killzone related, I think people would pay attention because it's not an already generated name. If it's something new again, they might put eyes on it. I think the name might turn some people off just because they've already made up their minds by now. If you're a longer term, if you've been playing since like, I guess 360 era is when Killzone really took off, you've made up your mind whether or not you care about that franchise. And especially if you owned a PS4, you've made up your mind because most people played Shadowfall, whether you played it at launch or because it was free or really, really cheap for so long.
Shadowfall was great. That game was very
I tried it. I got maybe 2 levels in and went, no, there are a lot better first-person shooters I can play. And that might just be how it jives with me personally.
Like, and that's the thing. Killzone has a very unique feel in terms of first-person shooting. Like, you either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground. I think the coolest aspects of Killzone is the lore and the aesthetic, not so much the gameplay. I love the gameplay, but I can see how some people are put off. So that's why I say I'd rather go for a reimagining.
Yeah. But anyways, going on to the round of 4, we got the Getaway against SOCOM and Sly Cooper against Shadow of the Colossus. So we have Getaway and SOCOM. That's a lot tougher. If I'm going for... Because you're basically thinking like in terms of a GTA sort of game against a tactical like Call of Duty-esque, Battlefield-esque sort of thing. Based on the market right now, I'd probably barely lean the Getaway because I think people are starting to slow down on military first-person shooters. Not a lot, but it's definitely waned compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, I don't know, like, because I know the SOCOM community is pretty vocal.
It is. Like, it really, I don't think there's an incorrect answer here. This is more just my feeling. This is me just thinking, I think more eyes would get put on a new... Actually... Now I'm trying to
What do you
think
got for me?
which is more needs to go away for a while: open world games or FPS games. Well, wait, Ubisoft is
I'm
making
gonna
the Getaway. I'm not. Never mind. I'm not changing my answer. If
I'm
Ubisoft's
gonna
not
say
making the Getaway, it's fine.
I'm gonna say the Getaway, and here's my thought: is that the problem with SOCOM is if you do SOCOM, it's immediately gonna get compared to Call of Duty and Battlefield, and you're gonna be going against those players, and that's a pretty hard battle to go with. The Getaway, your biggest competitor is GTA, which don't get me wrong, is huge, but GTA is its own little monolith and it has its own little space, but it is not a competitive space, right?
Yeah, and it would be more competitive if Saints Row wasn't received as badly as the new one has. So,
Mhm.
like, there's an opening here.
And I'm not trying to say that GTA is, just to clarify for the listeners, I'm not clarifying that GTA is not competitive. GTA is its own thing and people play GTA, but it is not like there's a ton of them coming out. Like there is basically GTA and Saints Row, womp womp. There's not much else. Like when people finish playing GTA and if they're not into the online community, there's nowhere for them to go. Oh, hey, look, there's the Getaway. I want more GTA. I want that feeling. I'm going to go there. And to be honest, as much as we have a lot of open world, we don't have a lot of open world car crime games anymore. Like,
Yeah,
scratch that.
there was a flood of them in the PS2 era because obviously, well, there were three three Grand Theft Auto games, not even counting
Mhm.
Liberty City and Vice City Stories.
Mhm.
So there was a flood of big ones, and then people tried to recreate that as quickly as they could, failed miserably, and it's kind of been dead since because no one wants to even try to compete against them. So
Mhm.
with the Sony pedigree of first person studios, you might have a chance to. You'll never beat GTA, but to have
No,
like an AEW to WWE, like that kind of setup where it's like you're always going to be number two, but you're still doing good money.
honestly, in that area, it wouldn't be hard for them to be number two. And there's nothing wrong with being number two in that field.
It's
When
could you
number
be an
one is
effective number two that can generate good business?
you don't even need to be effective. Like think about it. GTA makes is like the highest grossing media property of all time. GTA 5. If you're second place to that, that's not a bad
Well, I
place to
mean, I don't
be.
mean effective as like being close in number two. I just mean like making good money regardless of being the number two.
Agreed.
So yeah,
All right.
we'll go
Get
with
away.
that, and then that leaves us Sly Cooper and Shadow of the Colossus. I'm still sticking with Sly on this one because I think there's more applicability with this. I think both of them are fantastic on their own, but I think from a bridging point, Sly Cooper has more room to go with after that remake.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Because like in the initial fight of Shadow of the Colossus and Killzone had more room to grow, but I didn't think that there was, that it would be able to. Whereas Sly Cooper, I think, could because of its aesthetic alone would definitely give itself an advantage of being different.
Mhm.
Because I mean, it was a big deal when people saw Kenna. Like it got a lot of people's attention just because of how it looked. Now it didn't play as well as I think people had hoped for, but if you assume Sly Cooper comes out and is a great game, like if we're assuming any of these remakes are Sony level, like 8, 9 out of 10s, Sly Cooper could be a great bridging point and also having the advantage of being so different looking compared to most games.
Yeah, I think you're selling me on that one. Like I think from a single game remake, I think Shadow of the Here's a question though, because does Sly Cooper still hold up enough compared to Shadow of the Colossus?
No, I don't think it does. But in the way that I eliminated Killzone, I think Sly Cooper has the more potential to make you money more down the road than just going for the single shot in Shadow of the Colossus. That's my
Yeah,
thinking. Because I don't know if you make a. I don't think you make a second game after that because they've never
it's
really
yeah.
gone that route. They've always just made something new. That's where The Last Guardian came in. So
Yeah. And you know what? I think, yeah, you're totally right there. Like, Shadow of the Colossus would come and go, and people would just move
it
on.
would be a
Whereas, yeah,
great. It would be a big like year for that game, but then it would
mhm,
be gone.
yeah,
It would be gone again.
I'm with you.
Like I think this would be more Shadow of the Colossus would be better. I think between the two, I would put Shadow of the Colossus and remaster it and make it like run more smoothly on a PS5. But from the ground up, I think Sly Cooper could bring you more business in the long term.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to give it to Sly as well.
Okay. We're almost making it through two brackets without flipping a coin. I'm kind of surprised. So that leaves us with our final match of the Getaway and Sly Cooper.
I go Getaway.
Yeah, I thought originally this was going to be harder as we were coming up to it, and I'm like, no, I think the Getaway just has so much more potential if we're assuming the high quality Sony like good rating release between the two. Because if you now have like Sly Cooper as a series going forward, if it did well, would be great. But if you think about a number 2 option to GTA now as a series going forward, a Getaway 2, a Getaway 3, like we're talking not Last of Us potential, but like similar things of like just a new game that pops out there, and just when the second one gets announced, it's all hands on deck. Everybody wants to know what's coming.
Yeah, it's a good option for just launching a new IP, right?
Yeah.
Or not a new IP, but like launching a new.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, what do we got for PlayStation 3?
So we got those two. So we have Metal Gear Solid and the Getaway. So moving on to PlayStation 3, our 2 play-in rounds, we have PlayStation All-Star Battle Royale, and we have Heavy Rain, and then the other match is Mag going up against Mod Nation Racers. And by the way, this was a harder one to make do with. I picked my last couple ones just by Metacriticing them, because I'm like, I don't know who I put in here. Okay, Metacritic, what was rated higher? Okay, you're in. There we go. There's your tiebreaker. Right. So yeah, first match, PlayStation All-Stars Heavy Rain. I think PlayStation All-Stars should, because, I mean, Heavy Rain is... Here's my argument with Heavy Rain. If you've already played Heavy Rain, is it going to have the same value if you play it again if you know what's coming?
Agreed.
That's my thing with remaking. Like, I've heard people dance around the idea of making Heavy Rain. I say, well, what's the point? You know the twist.
It's like watching Knives Out or like a mystery movie a second time. You know what's happening.
Yeah,
like...
it like whodunits aren't really that great the second time, except for Clue, because Clue is not trying to be a whodunit. It's trying to be a parody of it.
Yeah, I agree. PlayStation All-Stars.
And then that leaves Mag and Mod Nation Racers. I normally would go with Mag, but I think Mod Nation Racers would be a nice niche thing to have in your back pocket. I don't think either of these is going to go very far in this bracket. No. But I think Mag is just a 100+ battle arena. I don't think works. It's too much. I've played games that have like massive battlefields that have like copious, like stupidly copious amounts of people. It's not fun for the most part, because it's usually just utter chaos and you die to bullshit. It's not fun.
I think there's a couple other issues with Mag as well. One, it's a very competitive space. You're now going up against, like, one, it's a military first-person shooter multiplayer. Does that hold up in a post-Fortnite, PUBG, Call of Duty, Warzone?
You know what? If they did Mag similar to what Call of Duty is now with what's their battle royale thing?
Warzone.
Thank you. I don't know why I was blanking on it. Like, it could work in that space, but like the competitiveness of that is really difficult. So like,
but then at that point, you're not remaking the game; you are making a new
you're
game.
doing something completely different. So like, Mag just doesn't work transitioning. I think. Like, I've seen people try to dance it. I don't think you can make Mag now.
It's also a big risk, right? It's
without it being
100 player. No, it was 200. Was it 100 or 250 players?
I can't remember. But it was a large amount at the time.
So you now need to get servers with 250 people on them. Like, that's a huge risk. So no, I don't think Mag is too risky.
I don't think Mod Nation Racers is going very far in this, but like compared to Mag, like that's not a difficult one.
This will probably be their one and only W.
Probably. Our round of 8 is Resistance against PlayStation All-Stars, Everybody's Golf against Little Big Planet, Motorstorm against Mod Nation Racers, and Uncharted against Infamous. That is a fun last one that we'll get to. Okay. But Resistance against PlayStation All-Stars,
Resistance.
Yeah, I was going to say, compared to Killzone, like I think Resistance also has a lot of potential, and between the two, I think there's more of a market there.
Well, I think it's not even like there's a market there, but I think it's just a matter of it hasn't had much time to, like, if you think about it, that series lived and died on one console. Right, we never got I mean, there's a PS Vita, but whatever.
Yeah, it could have a real fighting chance to like breathe new life into it and make it like a series again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know which one I'd go with. Resistance 1 was good, Resistance 3 was good, but like I wasn't a huge fan of Resistance 2.
I mean, I think I've maybe played them once at a friend's house doing the multiplayer. I've never actually played any of the Resistance games, like single player wise.
They're good stories, so like I'd say Resistance.
Yeah, I can agree with that too, just because I don't think PlayStation All-Stars is, like, especially now that Multiverses is doing what it's doing, that market's gotten even slimmer now.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's Golf against Little Big Planet. I don't think Little Big Planet needs anything else. I think Everybody's Golf doesn't really need one either, but I think that's kind of like a nice little niche between the two.
I would disagree. I would say go back to Little Big Planet, because you have some success that, like, hey, Little Big Planet got some new life breathed into it with Sackboy Big Adventure, but the original Little Big Planet is so different from what Sackboy's Big Adventure is that I think that like you might get some more residual sales. Do I think that either of these are going to go beyond? No.
No.
But I think of the two, I would go Little Big Planet.
Like I'm not gonna lie here. Like this is probably the weakest of the 4 brackets between everything here because there's a lot of like, eh. I mean, I don't really want to argue it either, so I'll just go with Little Big Planet. I don't think that either of these are really that good. It's just that really shows like there wasn't a lot to choose from on the PS3 because most of them are like Last of Us would have been a great one, but they've already done it twice, so what's the point?
Yep, exactly.
Motorstorm, Mod Nation Racers. This one's interesting because we're talking about 2 racing games that have 2 different gimmicks to them. Mod Nation Racers being more of like a kart racer, whereas Motorstorm was, I thought was a really neat idea, being like an off-road, like super intense, like off of mountain cliffs, like kind of thing. I think Motorstorm barely ekes it out, but that's also just because there's still a big market for people that are like yearning for the old days of like the Burnout series.
I can see that. I see where you're coming from, but like,
I think this is another case though of like, do either of these are these great ideas? No.
See, I would go Mod Nation Racer because my logic is that Motorstorm is obviously not a Gran Turismo or anything, but like I feel like there's more competition there, whereas the only other one you have is
Motorstorm
Mario,
would just be a good idea to like compare it up against like for Forza Horizon in terms of like the off-roading, like crazy, like speeding on a mountainside, like kind of gameplay. Because the big thing with Motorstorm was like the extreme like weather elements to it.
Yeah, you know what? You're talking me into Motorstorm. I think Motorstorm is the way to go.
It's also a game that I'd like to see redone because I never got to play them because I didn't own a PS3, so I missed out on that boat too. I think Mod Nation Racers would be nice as like, you know, a cheap like put that for free on PlayStation Extra kind of thing, but I don't think it's going to really do much for you money-wise. But then we get to the difficult one because it's coming at it from 2 different angles. Uncharted against Infamous. Uncharted, you're basically thinking, well, geez, remake the original? Of course you would. But also Infamous as a whole, like, that series, if you do it right again, you put that next to like Spider-Man and you have the, okay, this is the actual superhero tie-in game, and then here's our own fictional like superhero game that's on of its own and our own like specially crafted story.
Yeah.
I actually not sure which direction I'll go in because honestly, like, this is also my bias talking. I don't actually think the original game is that good, so I wouldn't even.
Are you talking original Infamous or
Uncharted?
Okay.
I think Infamous has a more interest from my end. I think though, like you almost pick Uncharted just on the basis of the name. But like, there's still a community that would like to see Infamous come back just because they'd like to see something superhero based that isn't, you know, Marvel related or DC related. So it's actually tougher than it looks, and I knew that going in when I made these brackets.
So my thought process is that we have had a lot of Uncharted. Like we've had, I think it's 5 games now.
Yeah, and we're looking at what technically 4 Infamous games if you count First Light, even though it was a smaller game.
That was a DLC.
Yeah, it's more of like a small standalone.
It's not even a standalone because I think you have to have the game, don't you?
Because I remember getting it for free on on PS Plus at one point.
Yeah, so it's 4 versus 5. Like we haven't seen Infamous in a long time, and so I'm inclined to say like, hey, let's go with Infamous. You know,
just because like Uncharted's still going, so you can still fill that void. Whereas Infamous, you bring it back, you now have a new franchise again.
But the problem that you have with Infamous is that, spoilers for Infamous, whatever, it's a 12-year-old game. Infamous ends on a cliffhanger, so do you have to then do both?
You could even honestly just wave your hand and be like, man, other universe now. Or like, it doesn't even have to be like in the same area. Like you can still like hand wave and say, oh, actually this happened in Europe somewhere.
I'd say it's Infamous, and my logic from that perspective is that we've already had the we actually technically had the Honor Amongst Thieves deals version, right, for Uncharted already.
Yeah.
So like those have already been kind of remastered, so I think it goes to Infamous.
Because I think the trilogy is getting brought to PC soon if it hasn't already, isn't it?
Yeah. And like the other thing too is that like Infamous is great, but it is ugly. It's an ugly game.
It's untapped potential that would look great on new hardware.
Well, just from even an aesthetic perspective, it's an ugly game in that it is from that everything is brown era, right? So like I think coming in and being like, hey, we're gonna kind of clean it up and make it a little bit more colorful and vibrant. Like, I think it would really pop. And yeah, I'd say Infamous.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that too, just because again, Uncharted is pretty well populated already. It doesn't need to be anything else.
It's struggling. But then again, so is neither. Horizon's not either. So I mean, who are we to say?
Yeah. Our semifinal matches: Resistance against Little Big Planet and Motorstorm against Infamous. Am I wrong in thinking we're going to be seeing a Resistance Infamous round here?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, are we both in agreeing that it's Resistance
Resistance versus Infamous.
Yeah.
In terms of which one of those ones?
Yeah, because I mean, we're assuming that Resistance goes over Little Big Planet, and Motorstorm is not going to touch Infamous. So
yeah, I agree. It's going to be Infamous versus Resistance.
So basically, we're then looking at Resistance Infamous. If I'm making a choice between the two, honestly, I'm only picking Resistance just because it fills a hole that Sony currently really isn't occupying, whereas Infamous, you already have Spider-Man and Wolverine coming down. So you already sort of have the superhero, like, kind of games already existing, whereas Resistance would kind of bring a little bit of difference to what they're running right now, being a first-person shooter.
Yeah, but I think Infamous has more cachet.
Yeah, I guess we're kind of taking two different paths here. It really is like me thinking, okay, but this fills a hole that you're not currently occupying, and you're thinking, yeah, but Infamous might do a little better.
Yeah. All right, I think we're at a coin flip, sir. I think we're
finally at a coin flip. It only took us 3 brackets to do it towards the end, so you won't see it on screen, but I have a coin flip going on just on Google. Heads is going to be Resistance, Infamous is going to be Tails.
Sure.
I'm not going to cheat this. What's the point? I'm not winning anything for this. And it is heads. So it's Resistance.
Cheating bastard.
Right? Right?
Just so happens.
I know as I'm saying that, I'm like, it's going to float up heads, isn't it?
Yeah. No, all right, cool.
Okay, and we're left with PlayStation 4. So our play-in rounds, we have Journey going up against The Last Guardian, and we have Knack going up against No Man's Sky. Journey and Last Guardian, this is a no-brainer to me. Even though Journey still looks great now, why not redo it?
I disagree on that one. I'd say it's probably the... Sorry, what's the alternative to Journey?
The Last Guardian?
I'd say it's The Last Guardian. And I think Journey is the better game. However, it's kind of like Heavy Rain in the sense of like, once you know the crux, once you know the hook, do you want to play it again?
I think you can do some pretty interesting changes to it and add a little bit more to it, add some more mechanics to it. You completely rescore the game and really, like, look, they got nominated for a Grammy last time. Why don't we go full on and try to go for it this year? I'm also just saying this because I don't think anybody wants to see The Last Guardian being redone. That's my logic is purely on no one wants to see The Last Guardian again.
All right, I'm gonna say the Journey, and the reason why I have that one is I'd like to see what it does with the DualSense. I think Journey could do some cool stuff.
That is also a good point.
All right, I'm gonna give it to Journey.
Like, I don't think Journey should go all the way through this because I think it's already really good on its own. Like, I have friends that just played it recently and they fucking cried playing that game and still think it's beautiful today. So
I played it on the PS4 like a couple years ago when PlayStation Now just came out, and I was like, still, it's fine.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly fine.
Journey,
and then we have Knack up against No Man's Sky. I mean, I don't think No Man's Sky really can be included here just because it's still ongoing.
Yeah.
Even though Knack is not that great, but hey, it's just
these are two that are just gonna go.
It's a win by default.
They're sheeps to the slaughter. Let's give it to Knack.
I mean, to be fair, there isn't a lot on this list either. Actually, I might even change my answer. I think this one is actually the weakest bracket because it's the PS4. There's not going to be nearly as much to be remade yet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of unfair. But Until Dawn against Journey, I think in the same way of like both of them are cases of if you've already played them, they don't matter. But Until Dawn could be improved a little bit if it looks just a little better.
Yeah, I feel like Until Dawn would be like a fun one that you could sell every like October and live, like you could do like streams and stuff. I'd say probably Until Dawn.
Yeah, like, and this is not a slant against Journey. It's just because I don't think Journey necessarily needs a remake. This is going to be the problem with most of this PS4 bracket. Whatever comes out of this bracket is going to be last place between the four because it really won't need one because anything on PS4 that needed a didn't need a remake because let's be honest, Last of Us Remastered didn't need another one, and Horizon Zero Dawn didn't either, but Most of the games on this list do not need to be redone. As we get to the other, or sorry, I didn't even say what the other matches were, but we had Bloodborne against Order 1886, Neo against Knack, and Resogun against Drive Club. So Bloodborne, Order 1886. Here is the interesting question. Bloodborne is the answer. But man, does Order 1886 deserve a fucking second chance. Because that idea was great and just executed so badly.
This raises the question again that we had with Killzone.
What needs a remake? Order 1886 needs a remake.
Does it need a remake or does it need a reimagining?
Okay, that's a fair point. It needs a reimagining. Bloodborne would need a remake.
Granted, I think Order 1886 had some cool stuff. Like the thermite gun is one of the coolest guns I've ever used in a game.
I played Order 1886 and said, this would be fun if it didn't suck so bad.
Dude, I have a collectible, figure from Order 1886. And like I played it day one and I'm like, it's good. Like it has great ideas. But just it was poorly executed, and it wasn't even poorly executed. Like it did well. It's just they had some poor choices in terms of like duration and like the amount of gameplay. Like it's great. Like there's a lot of potential there, but it's just it missed the mark.
So yeah, we're gonna go with Bloodborne just because the fans will kill us if we don't, and also Order 1886 will be put under. Doesn't need a remake, but goddamn, could somebody try to make this again and not suck?
I think the thing with Bloodborne is that you're coming off the high once again of Elden Ring. You've got a bunch of people, like myself included, who are now getting used to and familiar with that Soulsborne style game. And I think Sony can come out and be like, hey, looking for something else? Demon's Souls crushed it on PlayStation 5. Elden Ring crushed it. Like Bloodborne.
Well, it's also the fact too that like if you go on any like sort of social media, like Reddit is where I usually frequent, people still will not shut the fuck up about wanting a Bloodborne remake or even just a Bloodborne 2. Like, they don't care how it is. They just want it again. That's all they want.
Yeah.
Like, Elden Ring was cool and all to that, but there's still that segment that's like, okay, I love Elden Ring, but where's my fucking Bloodborne 2?
Yeah.
Then we got next? Neo against Knack.
Yeah.
It's Neo only because it's Knack. That's honestly the logic here.
Exactly.
I mean, Neo doesn't need a remake either, but neither does Knack, so it's just kind of like, okay, which one is not Knack?
Pretty much.
And then Resogun against Drive Club. Drive Club loses because Gran Turismo exists and is doing fine.
Pretty much, yep.
So it's Resogun. And honestly, Resogun is pretty underrated. Housemarque did a fantastic job with that.
But that's also a game that doesn't necessarily need a remake.
No, and as we said, most of the games in this list don't actually need remakes, but we're doing it because we had to pick 10 games on this console.
It's so stupid that they're remaking PS4 games.
But then we have Until Dawn, Bloodborne, and then Neo and Resogun. Are we just assuming Bloodborne and Neo in the final?
Yeah.
And are we just assuming Bloodborne's winning?
Yeah, 100%. It's Bloodborne.
We don't even need to talk about this one. Like, this one's pretty straightforward.
It's Bloodborne.
Also, again, I know there's almost nobody watching this show currently as our audience numbers stand, but I do not want to be caught dead with the scorn of From Software fans being like, you seriously didn't think Bloodborne could get out of that bracket?
This is gonna sit on the internet forever. So like 5 years, 10 years from now, someone can find it and be like, hey, where the hell?
So I don't think this is still difficult, but let's go through our champions. So, like we said, Bloodborne on PlayStation 4. We had Resistance for PlayStation 3. We had the Getaway for PlayStation 2. And we had Metal Gear Solid for PlayStation 1. This was a 2-horse race, in my opinion. It's the Getaway against Metal Gear Solid. And I still don't think it's that close, even though the Getaway does have a lot of potential.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Should Metal Gear 1 get a remake?
Yes.
I think there's a very, very strong reason for that. But this is how the Getaway got here, is that there's a market for the Getaway in terms of what it could become. What do you do with Metal Gear? First of all, you don't have Kojima making it. Unless you get him to make it. Like, I don't know what happens there.
Well, let's just assume that you're Sony and you have the license to do it. You unquestionably pick Metal Gear because that is where the attention will go. Mm-hmm. Even if the Getaway gets made as a 10 out of 10 classic gem on the console for eternity,
Hmm.
No one will care compared to what like the announcement of a Metal Gear remake would get. If you're a business, like this is the thing. What's the question we're asking? What needs a remake and what should be a remake? So
Yeah.
honestly, what's the like this is how we're deciding it. Because again, we're not Resistance and Bloodborne aren't on this at all. Because like as much as both of them would be cool, they just don't compare it in my opinion.
Well, we're just talking right now about the Getaway and Metal Gear. We haven't gotten to the other side yet.
Well, yeah, but like, oh no, this is a four-way. This is
Oh,
a four-way final.
It's a free for all.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's why I'm saying like those two, like they could get good remakes. They just aren't nearly as big in scope, I think, comparatively in terms of potential and audience reach.
I think we can cut Resistance. That's
Resistance immediately, yes.
Yeah. Now, here's my argument though from Bloodborne, in that Bloodborne would definitely benefit if you got the Demon Souls experience. Everything looks crisper, 4K, HDR. You locked in the 60 frames per second. Like there's a huge benefit. Like it's not going to be a big jump, but that's a game that is going to benefit from that.
I'm not denying it. Here's where I'm looking at it. I'm looking at, like I said, for all the other times that we've looked at it, we're assuming Sony pedigree level, 8, 9, maybe even 10 out of 10 if you're really lucky. Which of the three are going to get you the biggest buzz, the biggest potential sales, and the biggest like potential moving forward? If we assume that Konami doesn't fuck up Metal Gear Solid, because they probably will, that would be my pick. Even though I think there's a great potential of, say, the Getaway carving out its own spot, or Bloodborne just doing fantastic numbers because From Software is just on another level right now. Yeah. I think if you're just going from a pure business perspective, you want that attention with Metal Gear, because even if all of the myriad of articles that get written about Kojima not being there, it's still going to be one of the most talked about games until its release, and depending on how well or how badly it does, it will still remain one of the biggest talked about games for at least the remainder of that year.
You know what? The other thing too, the argument for Metal Gear is that you really can't play it anywhere else right now. It's locked.
Yeah, like there's, apart from, I'm not even sure if, because I know it was available on PC, but I don't know if it's available on PC anywhere currently.
Mm-hmm. I can't think of one, so.
I mean, if it's like, okay, we can already guarantee us our fourth place is Resistance.
Yeah.
If we're like, can we eliminate one for a bronze? Like, let's start from there. Can we eliminate one more and put a third place?
I'd say Bloodborne's probably number 3 in my opinion.
I think I'd put the Getaway only because I'm not sure compared to the other two how they would fare in terms of like people's attention. It depends on who makes the Getaway. That's the key here, that we don't know if that ever happened.
My argument is that Bloodborne doesn't need a remake or a remaster. It literally just needs a PS5 upgrade like we got.
But that would still generate so much buzz. Like that's how big a deal it is right now, because like I said, From Software's killing it. The Getaway is an unknown because we don't know who would take it. Like if suddenly if they turned around and said Naughty Dog's doing Getaway, people would be like, "Oh shit." But if no offense to them, but if the guys who make Days Gone are getting the Getaway, I don't know if people care nearly as much. I think it's like it's a bit of a weird one because you don't know immediately where it's coming from. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Bloodborne, it's From Software, who are like the belle of the ball right now, or Metal Gear Solid, which is just the one of the most legendary series out there.
Yeah, I think for me the ranking, I go Metal Gear, I go Getaway, I go Bloodborne, I go Resistance.
So at the end of all of this, we're at least agreeing on one.
Metal Gear.
Then that's the important thing. Like we can disagree on what's second and third, but it's a silver and a bronze medal. Who cares? So we're saying Metal Gear is, out of all the ones that we had here in these brackets, the one that would be the most, the best choice for a remake right now. And I think that makes sense. I don't think a lot of people would disagree with that. You can make cases for other games being worthy of it, but I think between everything that we put on this list, the ceiling is the highest for Metal Gear, because if whoever takes it, because, I mean, there's always been rumors that somebody working in a Sony studio was going to be working it from the ground up, and Konami was maybe kind of there in the background. there's a real potential that if it's not Konami's like dirty fingers, pachinko laden machine fingers on top of this, we can be talking about a series that was thought to be dead in the water making a massive comeback.
I think Kojima should just stick it to Konami and go to PlayStation and be like, "Hey, I got this game for you. It's called Metal Sprocket." And the
It's
main
interesting
characters,
though because there was a list that came out of things that might be being worked on with Sony, and Kojima Productions was listed in there.
yeah, I don't know if Kojima wants to make another Metal Solid Gear anytime soon.
Well, no, it wasn't. It was a completely different IP again.
Oh.
But like, honestly, it'd be interesting if Kojima's like, all right, it's not gonna be Metal Gear, but I'm gonna make something that fucks with that.
I don't even think fucks with it, but I think just having one that's just like a spiritual.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like
Successor,
it's
like-
showing like I still have the touch on this.
I still think he makes Metal Sprocket with Metal Sprocket with Firm Snake.
No. It has to
Firm-
be like Silver Sprocket.
No, it's just call it Metal
It can't.
Sprocket.
No, don't call it metal. That's too obvious.
Steel Sprocket. There we go.
Fine,
Steel
there you go.
Sprocket, and your main character is called Firmworm, and like just go from there.
Okay, that sounds. You know what? I was about to say that sounds way too. Wait. This is a Kojima game. Of course, it sounds sexual. Never mind.
Kojima, my phone's open. Give me a call whenever.
I'm
you
like,
want.
wait
We
a
can
minute.
talk-
Firmworm quiet exists in Metal Gear Solid 5. Who am I kidding about Kojima not being too averse to that? Never mind.
Kojima, my phone is open. Feel free to reach out. We can chat.
Oh my god.
Adam, this is a fun little exercise.
It was.
But
does that mean it's time for another exercise?
You're gonna be racking your brain on this one. Adam, we've got our. I guess this might be our final game of Trophy Stumpers. We're gonna have to see what happens with the new episode next week. But I have for you 10 trophies. You have 2 guesses to guess one game. So it's gonna be 10 trophies or achievements. You have to guess based on the trophies. Are you ready to go?
Maybe one last time. We'll see how it goes.
Let's go. All right, trophy number 1, the Gardens.
The Gardens?
The Gardens.
Okay.
Number 2, Artist.
What was it? Sorry, what was that?
Number 2 is Artist.
Artist, okay.
Number 3, Homemaker.
Okay.
Number 4, Fashion Sense.
Okay.
Number 5, Treasure Hunter.
Okay, I'm gonna take my first guess and go with... Actually, no, never mind, I won't. I won't use this guess.
Okay.
I actually think Homemaker wouldn't be an achievement for this game.
So, first 5, The Gardens, Artist, Homemaker, Fashion Sense, Treasure Hunter.
Okay.
Number 6, 8 times Multiplier.
Oh, okay, I'm definitely glad I didn't waste the guess on this then. Alright.
Okay. Number 7, Secret Stickerist.
Okay,
Secret
now-
Stickerist.
Oh god, okay, that threw me way off.
Number 8, Publisher.
Okay.
Number 9, High Score.
Yeah, that helps. Okay.
Number 10, Share.
Oh god.
So all the trophies we have, The Gardens, Artist, Homemaker, Fashion Sense, Treasure Hunter, 8 times Multiplier, Secret Stickerist, Publisher, High Score, Share.
Okay, well I got 2 guesses. I'll go with a random one just because of sticker. Scribble Knots?
Nope, it is not Scribble Knots.
Oh god.
What are the ones you think are standing out?
None of them, honestly. I originally was gonna go with Destiny just because the garden comes up with Black Garden, things like Fashion Sense and Treasure Hunter, but like Homemaker, I don't have no idea what would have to do with Destiny, so. But do I have another guess is the real question.
Yeah, I'll give you another guess.
Well,
You want me to
no.
read
I
this-
mean, do I have another guess beyond Destiny is the question.
Here, let me go backwards and maybe that might help you.
No, it won't.
Share.
No, it won't.
Share, High Score, Publisher, Secret Stickerist, 8 times Multiplier, Treasure Hunter, Fashion Sense, Homemaker, Artist, Gardens. Or the Gardens.
I'm just gonna go with Destiny, and that's all I got because you've stumped my ass.
It is not Destiny.
Did you pull something on me in the last show?
Nope. Nope. This is the Little Big Planet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 8 times multiplier, stickerist, publisher, share, fashion sense.
Yeah. I would have had no idea on that one.
Sorry, buddy. Womp, womp.
Look, it makes sense that potentially the last one of these we do, you royally stumped me.
Hey, you've had a pretty good run on these games, so
yeah, except for games that I really like, apparently.
Yeah, that's the best one I've gotten on you.
I'm sure we'll find something down the road that you can use against me too.
For sure. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the show. We're going to be back next week, but it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to have Jin and Chris on the show. He's going to be joining us. We're going to have 3 of us. It's not going to be drastically changing. Don't worry. This isn't going to be all brand new, but we're just going to come with a more discussion-based episode. So we'd like you guys to stick around. Check us out on that one. If you haven't yet, subscribe just to make sure you don't miss the new show when it comes out. Also, if you want to follow us on Twitter or Instagram to get any more updates, or to give us some topics for discussion, you can always do that by searching for us on our socials at PixelPlaycast or emailing us at pixelplaypodcast@gmail.com. My name's Kaylan. Adam has been my co-host. It's been a pleasure. We will see you guys next week. Bye for now.